Hello friends, and welcome to LevelHead, where we look at and learn from great level design. Today we're taking a look at the high difficulty action platformer, Wings of V. Wings of V is the breakout title for Grinsoft, a small dev team led by Solgren, who you may know for creating what is arguably the most difficult and most popular I Wanna Be the Guy fan game, I Wanna Be the Boshi. Following in the wake of Boshi's popularity, Grinsoft came to be, and in the same vein of hyper-difficult platforming, extreme precision jumps, and lengthy combat sections, Wings of V was born. This game is not for the faint of heart, not by a long shot. Every segment is a test of patience, muscle memory, and endurance. To some this may be off-putting, and I can understand why, but I find it impressive how the first minutes of the game set up a difficult environment for the player, hammer in specific and unique mechanics, condition them for the road ahead, and then introduce them to the real difficulty before allowing them to move into the rest of the game. Despite there not being any sort of real level boundaries, we're going to be looking at the game up to the first real boss fight as one level. This section is your independent studies, followed by your entrance exam, as far as gameplay goes. So while it may be just a tad obvious, I love that the first screen is set up so that when you walk off the bed, you fall between the bed and the wall. You have to jump here, and that's great. Small details like that shouldn't be underappreciated. Something as tiny as one jump to start off your experience speaks volumes about priorities for the rest of the gameplay. But I won't oversell it. You head outside, and skipping over some exposition, you'll be following your friend Ruby for a little while. This is your sans text tutorial of the day. You may have seen my show before, and you may know all about teaching through showing and not telling, but it stays just as important every time we talk about it. Wings of V has jump mechanics that are sort of unique, and this is the best way to learn them. The first little gap is just a jump, easy peasy. The second one is slightly farther away, and the third one is a jump up to another level, but then this section has you fall and then jump in the air to get around this corner. It seems straightforward for now, but it's an important setup for another jump in just a moment. You traverse a few more platforms of varying angles and spacings, and then you reach this specific jump. This is very important, so pay attention. It's extremely likely that in order to follow her, you run forward, jump, and then attempt to double jump like she did, but oops. That doesn't work. What the heck? The double jump is a common element in platformer games, and this segment is there to make you unlearn the thing you've learned 100 times before. You do not have a double jump, well, right now. In fact, you have more of a jump charge, let's say, and you can only use this charge once per time leaving the ground. So you can't jump and then jump again, but you can fall from a ledge and then jump in the air because you haven't used your one jump charge yet. This whole section is a series of jumps that utilize this jump charge in slightly different ways, and since Ruby performs them all in front of you, there's no guesswork as to how to proceed. You follow her, and even if you fall, you'll only be set back a few seconds at the very worst. These instances just gets you to practice the techniques again, making them feel more natural. Following this, Ruby challenges you to a race which forces you to use these jumping mechanics under a slight bit of pressure. Again, reinforcement. We're slowly turning up the heat, ever so slowly. Teaching tools of game mechanics are important, but becoming acclimated to the difficult environment is more so in this situation. We're gonna pick up the pace because there's quite a bit to cover. That was the jump section we just went through, and now we're into the combat section. Skimming the plot, we grab our first weapon after being shown what enemies look like, and the next thing in front of the path are a bunch of bulbous, red and purple, gross things. Simple lesson with simple execution. Put it all together, and what do you get? Red things are bad, hit them. You can tell because spurty effects and flashing numbers. After that is the first checkpoint of the game. Following this is a series of situations introducing you to each of the 3 low-tier baddies in a row. The jumping dog thing, the flying eye thing, and the floating tiki shoots at you and teleports thing. The stage is equipped so that in each initial encounter, you have time to dodge and observe and learn how they work. Thanks to the effects and numbers, you also get to see just how many hits are needed to deal with each of these enemies, to help you strategize on the go later in the level. These encounters are followed up by a repeat with more difficult terrain. Simple and clean. Jump Dog has some insta-kill floor spikes, Floaty Eye has some falling platforms a la Mega Man, and Tiki Guy has slopes that allow him an advantageous angle to shooting at you. You know how these work as you've encountered each element individually through the level so far, but now things are being combined into new challenges. We already got red, yellow, and blue, now we get to learn how to deal with orange, green, and purple, so to speak. As you fight your way onward, you're blocked by a ledge that's out of reach, so you start doubling back and heading up this incline. Battling up to the top nets you a sort of mini-boss kind of experience. A huge health bar shows up at the bottom of the screen, and once it's depleted, you're introduced to Ira, who rewards you with a feather that allows you to flutter. Combat section done, flutter section is up next. You're introduced to these one-hit kill spikes that can't be destroyed, and then given a series of jumps that require precise use of the new flutter technique combined with your jump to traverse them. The first one is the obvious order, jump and then flutter. But then it starts to show you the benefits of using them differently. You can jump and flutter over this pillar, but you're left at a dead end. All of the space and scenery up here leads you back to a better vantage point, and after some experimentation, it can be learned that fluttering before a jump can help you reach otherwise unreachable platforms. Following that up for reinforcement is another flutter then jump bit. The close checkpoint allows you to jump back in quickly if you miss, and it's a great place to hammer home the usefulness of intimately knowing the jump and flutter mechanics and how they work together. Alright, I trust you guys, you're smart human beings, I don't need to hold your hand through this stuff, and neither does the game. The next section is another compilation of things that you've just learned. Jumping, combat, and fluttering all together now. It's tough, but there's not much I can say about it. It does a great job of using each different technique together in unique ways to condition you to be good at all of them. Another portal boss fight and you double back to an area that was previously inaccessible. This drops you down to an actual boss fight, but wait for it, this isn't like the real one, so just chill for a second. This boss, Miyugi, isn't super difficult and she's not really supposed to be. She's the crash course in how bosses work. Her attacks are telegraphed through audio cues, and after each individual phase is dealt with, you're allowed a few hits to whittle down her health. This is how bosses function in Wings of V, and like I said before, this is how they ease you into that idea. Defeating her nets you another movement mechanic, the slide. You need to use it to get out of the fight area. Neat, right? Again, I'm not gonna dawdle, you guys get the point by now, I know you do. The next bunch of obstacles are various setups that introduce new enemies while forcing you to use the slide mechanic to traverse them. By the end of this, you'll become very comfortable with your arsenal and how to utilize it to its full potential. Jump, attack, flutter, slide. These are your tools and you need to use every single one of them to progress. The last major obstacle course of the level actually employs another mechanic for a difficulty spike. Instead of going through 1 or 2 actions at a time with a breather in between, you use this moving eye to scope out the stretch ahead, which has several actions to be executed in a row without being able to pause. It's a marathon and it's tough, but only as tough as you can handle already. It's unforgiving, yes, and it employs all of your tools, yes, but if you can't pass this, there's no way you can handle what's to come. That's the beauty here, you never get ahead of yourself. The difficulty is a steady ramp and there's nothing that you're going to be tested on that you weren't taught already. And that brings me to the climax of this whole ordeal. Here's your last checkpoint and here is a big fat dose of foreshadowing. Drop down and let the pain commence. Meet Pregora and prepare yourself for a test of willpower. Pregora is the first real boss fight of the game. Miyugi was a cakewalk compared to this guy. During the cutscene of his introduction, you're shown to avoid his gross spit breath stuff, but aside from that, you're dropped in blind. Pregora has 5 attack patterns and learning them is all about trial and error. Before you complain, just remember that this is the same game mechanic that Dark Souls employs for pretty much everything. And also that dying in this fight is more or less devoid of punishment aside from just restarting the fight. Each of these attacks employs the techniques you've learned but under heavy pressure. You jump and flutter to avoid the beam, slide and jump to dodge the ground pound, slide or jump to stay safe during the gusts of wind, jump over the charges, and drop off the ledge, flutter, and then jump back up when he charges high. It's tough, yes, it's frustrating, definitely, but this fight is the culmination of your training and all it requires of you is on-point execution. The patient and precise player will be the one to overcome, and the best part is that it's still toughening you up. Wings of V is incredibly hard. It's unforgiving and precise and you will likely rage quit, but every death has a quick recovery that sends you right back into the action. Every mistake comes with new knowledge and understanding. Much in the vein of Dark Souls and 1001 Spikes, pain is utilized to teach the player the best possible way to overcome every single obstacle. This game shows you the best road to the end, but not without a few cuts and bruises on the way. You'll die over and over, but you'll only become better at the game with each misstep. With that said, I know this style of gameplay isn't for everybody, but I feel that it's true to itself and doesn't sacrifice its own themes and ideas in order to cater to players who wouldn't enjoy the game. If you're a fan of I Want to Be the Boshi, if you like blistering difficulty, or if you just want to brag about how good of a platformer you are, Wings of V is definitely for you. It made me rage quite a few times, but in the end that makes the victories all the more satisfying. With a $15 price tag and hours upon hours of fun to be had, I would definitely recommend Wings of V for thrill seekers and those looking to overcome a tough challenge. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of LevelHead, why don't you check out another one? Here's an episode on Smash Brothers for 3DS and another on A Link Between Worlds. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more. This has been Sunder, and I'll see you next time.